So all these proper zoning, permits, licenses, everything, how will Seven Stones Indonesia be providing the solutions or answers that people are asking for?
Well, we are the answer. No, I think
you are the investment roadmap.
I think different from other agencies, like typical advisors, whether it's real estate or legal or anything else, they kind of just deal with the box that they're presented with and trying to make sense out of it, while we kind of take a step back from that and try to get people early in the process. Or it's someone who is an established business and they're starting to get questions from tax office, permit office, local banjars and so on, and different things that they need to comply with, and they get confused. So we try to pull the client out of that and have a conversation with them. And this is something we do for totally free. We don't charge any consultation fees or anything. To then help them to think through what they are, where do they want to go, where do they want to be, and like we said before, if they have any particular exit plans at some stage they might want to sell the business, or they want to return back to their home countries. So that becomes part of the whole setup. So then it's either a company setup, or it's a private investment, it's a retiree set up. They just want to spend some months here every year, and so on and so on.
I think as well, sort of the birth of the idea, as far as I remember it, was as a result of a number of different meetings that yourself and the real estate department was dealing with. There were questions about, like you say, the zoning and the legitimacy of your villa operation and all that sort of stuff. And I think with the idea of the investment roadmaps, is as I see it, it kind of was a platform to be able to connect dots.
Mm-hmm.
They're all part of the process. And I think what was happening with us, and I think doesn't anymore because of this investment roadmap idea, and I think it still happens with other people, is that you go in there as a customer, and your one question is answered, but there are a lot of other questions that need to be answered in order for you to kind of move forward on that journey, whereas this investment roadmap idea, we kind of look at it all, the much bigger picture, and then figure it out that way. It reminds me of writing books. I know that you write books too, but when you write a plot of a book, you usually start at the end and then you work backwards, and because of that, you've always got the end in mind, and you always keep referring to the end, and where you're going. So the idea of the investment roadmap for me is like that. It literally is a map. First we do this because we want to do that, then we move to this, and we can't do this because of this, and all these things get answered pretty early on in the process, right? I mean, it's like
that's the idea.
We don't wait for problems to happen. We kind of try to address everything all not at the same time, but all in one kind of go,
or at least to minimize the exposure of problems. Like Bali has been known for nominee structures, and everyone knew it was kind of illegal, but everyone still did it because there was no issues. But then financial interest, sometimes the beneficial owner gets a bit naughty, sometimes the nominee gets a bit naughty, so there was all kinds of issues, and that got kind of flushed out or dealt with the tax amnesty, where tax office started asking questions to people, who is the owner of this, and who should we charge taxes to, and so on, which ended that. But it's the same, like for instance, like a lease operation, where people say, as a tourist you can lease land and buildings and anything you want for as long as you want. That's actually not correct. You have to have a professional setup, a company, and qualify yourself to actually be able to hold that. So again, the solution to that has always been that the expat will work together with a local, and the local will take down all the permits and operate in their name, but the money goes to the expat account, and then the expat actually holds the master lease. So then, as an example, the tax office comes on the door and says, okay, who operates this business? And let's say that, Wayan or whoever it is, so it's me, I'm running this, and this is what we've earned, and these are the taxes that I'm going to pay. And then the tax office is going to say, well, who owns the villa? because we see this expat running around the whole time, and I said, oh yeah, he owns the lease, but it's me running it. And I said, oh, so you give him the money, and then they need to see like a legitimate relationship, which they can also tax, so the expat will get taxed again, and obviously that adds on to the bill of running a business. Or it could be like in a case where immigration is coming along and they say, oh, who is living here, or is this expat, what is he doing, or he's actually owning the villa and I'm running the business for him, and then he could possibly also see, or she, the request for then a qualified work permit, because he's actually having an active income. And that's before you start talking on individual operations for a villa, for a restaurant, for all kinds of businesses. So I think a lot of people are waking up to, for now, smaller problems, but they grow bigger and bigger. And in particular, the big thing right now is the tax aspect, where the tax office is becoming more and more aggressive, because that's the main income for a country. And in Indonesia, it's been known to be not so important, because most people have been living off from agriculture and so on. But as Indonesia modernizes and normalizes itself, it becomes more and more important, and they're driving these aspects forward, and has a very developed structure on how they do that. So it's only a matter of time before they get to all of this, and then you will have to comply. Same with what Jokowi launched in 2018, the OSS system. They're trying to pull all these permits into a centralized system, and it's starting to work well. The next thing we'll see now is the omnibus, where you can't get a permit if you haven't gotten the right underlying zoning, the build permits, the operational permits, and so on and so on.
So these are the types of conversations and solutions that people should expect coming into Seven Stones Indonesia, just helping you through.
Absolutely, I think new investors definitely should have it, and I also think existing investors, to create a roadmap to consolidate what they actually have and not, and what they own and not, and what the structure is on. Like today, we had an American couple coming into the office, being half into a process and several $100,000 investment, and they've already paid for a villa, and they have no idea as to what structure that's going to be owned. And someone suggested that, it's in the name of my nominee, and we should just keep that nominee and we continue the agreements, which then sets them up for potential tax fraud, in the eyes of the Indonesian law. If the nominee decides to be nice, that's okay, and if they don't really have any legal legs to stand on. And they were going down the road of getting a retiree or a pension quitas, which is okay when you live here, but if you then also run an operational business on the premises, then you can't. As a retiree, you don't have the right to actually earn an income. So then you have to restructure and set up a company, and most probably end up with some kind of investor quitas or something like that. And I think it's still a few things that you can't be totally sure of, but what we say to clients is like, secure your assets, your investments, at least you have that, you own it clearly in some shape or form. And then you look at the different operational aspect and structure that as well as possible. And in some of those, you might need a local partner, a local company or something that runs and operate that. And after that, then it doesn't really matter. You're set to go, and you can operate peacefully and structured.
So you're guiding them through that journey, which is why it's called a roadmap, kind of showing them what that's like. And it's almost like, I think we briefly mentioned it before, where it started because you were a real estate company, but then you needed to figure out, there's multiple aspects, there's multiple questions that need to be answered, so why not have it all under one umbrella, almost, where you can just go within the other departments.
One process.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we saw in the days when we were just doing real estate, both for Seven Stones and other companies we've been involved with, is that you sold a piece of land to someone, and you kind of brought them to the notary, and the notary went through a due diligence, and they build a villa, they start the operations, and then they come back to you with problems. They didn't know that it wasn't the correct zoning for a commercial villa. They have problems with, Airbnb, commercial aspects, and so on and so on. So that made us think and trying to sort of see, okay, what do we do? And there was always the fear of, if we tell people everything, then they're not going to buy. And at the same time, we really want to be transparent and make sure people do the right thing. And it was very difficult for us to I guess, find the right answers to begin with. Both of us speaks Indonesian, I guess, so that helped to sort of penetrate and start looking at regulations, talking to big law firms, good advisors, and so on. And slowly we learned about it and got quite excited about the whole thing and emerged into more of a, I wouldn't use the one-stop shop, but people can come to us comfortably and have a conversation. And I think that we don't charge a fee up front to say, oh, for 1 hour you have to pay us whatever. We meet with them sometimes 1, sometimes 3, sometimes 5 times without actually charging a fee. And in between that, the information they get, they go back and they verify this, they do some studies online. And I think they get comfortable with what we put across, and then we get into actually engage on providing a service, whether that is setting up a company or provide them with a work permit or build permits and so on and so on.
The feedback we're getting from clients around this is very much that the process creates peace of mind. So people feel much more in control of their destiny, if you like. They know what are the stages they need to go through, they know what papers they need, they know what things need to be signed. Everything's really clear. And I think from a business and a brand perspective for us, that's kind of where we want to be. We want to be in a situation where we are genuinely, being as ethical as we can, and we're trying to help people. And the more information that we can give to a situation, the clearer it becomes for somebody to understand. And it kind of supports the idea of their perceptions too and their expectations. So we kind of in these conversations we put them on the right path, saying yes, you can do this, no, don't even think about doing that, because that you can't do that for this particular purpose. So it kind of clears the air of fluff and kind of makes things a lot clearer.
I think also the one important aspect of this is that what we sell to people, if anything, is integrity, transparency, and at the end of it, time, right? They can go and do all these things and find it out themselves, but it can be time consuming and sometimes a bit difficult. So that's probably one aspect. And I think you have several different types of investors. Some will be a bit more aggressive, some will be a bit more risky, but with a clear picture they can do their risk management of what they want to do, which in many cases, if you don't have all the information, you can't. And kind of like what Andy said, that you begin with the end of the story and then come backwards. Like today you can see people, if they sell a villa, let's say I own a villa in your name and you're my nominee, and then I sell this villa that I've owned or think I own for 10 years, and you're still cooperative and nice, so you let it happen through, you get your fees, and I end up with $1 million in my bank account, and then I want to take that money back to, let's say, Australia or Norway or whatever. Then the bank will right away say, well, where did this money come from? Even though they know they have to have an underlying reason for it. They said, well, I got that money from Tia because she was my nominee. And then they have to comply with tax aspects of that. And you can't get the money out because you don't have an underlying aspect, and you will eventually be taxed 20%. Tax office might then say, oh, how much did you really earn over these 10 years you've been there? You probably run a business. They start doing a tax audit, and they can go back sometimes up to 15 years, and you end up with a massive backlog of it. While if you're set up as a company from day one and you've operated and paid operational taxes and permits and everything is okay, you sell a company, you want to take the money home to wherever you came from, there's no problem, because it's a legit setup.
So essentially you're just this investment roadmap is what will be saving people from legal nightmares and all those kind of things people talk about when trying to start up a business in Indonesia.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of very successful stories in Bali and Indonesia of expats who's done really well, but there's also, nobody talks about that. Nobody sort of says, oh, I made millions of dollars and I'm rich and famous. But you always hear about all the bad stories where there's been nominee issues, tax issues, and so on. So I think part of our mission there too is to show people that there is a safe roadmap, there is a structured way of doing this where you can minimize the risk and that way attract more investors into Indonesia, into Bali, into other areas. And that again makes a good impact to the local community. An area takes off in terms of tourism or whatever it is. Yeah.
And if people wanted to get more information, have a direct face-to-face conversation, where would they go?
Good question, because we're never in the office now. I think we have a lot of information in our web pages, and also Gapura Bali is a good source of information. That's one of our media sites. But reach out through an email or WhatsApp or any of our contact details that you can also find on the webpage, and we'll set up an appointment, and we meet individually or parts of our team, and we have several legal lawyers and notaries in the office who can also then dig into further details of each process and each individual case.
So on the website is the company contacts as well as your personal contacts?
I'm not sure whether the personal contacts are in there, but anything coming in goes to hello@sevenstonesindonesia.com or legal@sevenstonesindonesia.com, and we'll get it.
Okay.
Or to the phone number. You can send a WhatsApp, or a phone has a WhatsApp account, so they can contact on that too.
Okay. So, thank you so much for all that information and for joining us today, Terry and Andy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you so much for all you listeners out there for tuning into this podcast. If you have any other inquiries regarding this investment roadmap or real estate, tourism, legal advice, business and marketing, don't forget, as we mentioned, you can reach us through hello@sevenstonesindonesia.com, or do check out our website, sevenstonesindonesia.com. We just did a whole rebrand, exciting stuff. And we're also available to answer your questions directly through Instagram or LinkedIn. Let us know what kinds of conversations you'd like to listen to on the Seven Stones podcast. And as usual, we will see you in our next episode.